Amen. Amen. Once again, thank you all for coming tonight. I am my heart is overjoyed to see how many of you are here, and I know there's still some on their way. I thank you for coming out, and thank you. I also want to thank you for your faithfulness in giving to the church, because we've got air conditioning. That's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing. We're going to get right into our training tonight, but I do want to say thank you to a few people, not only everyone who is here, but to Reverend T. Lewis Steele and Deacon Rodney Smith and the entire health and safety team who've been working extremely hard to not only keep us healthy, but also keep us safe. And so let's give it up for them. And we're pleased to have with us a son of our church who is now doing very well in the New York State Police Department, and that's in the person of Brother Christopher West. Just stand up and let. He's the one I've been bugging to get this together, and he's come, and he has come through. Would you like to say something? Hello, Amen. Thanks again, Colonel West, right? Colonel West. Amen. And Colonel West has introduced me to a gentleman that we have beginning to build a relationship with. We've done a walkthrough with the health and safety team and some of our trustees, and that's Trooper Steve Rothwine. Steve Rothwine. Let's put it together for him. Without any further ado, I'm going to put it over into his hands. There is some cold water in the vestibule. If you need some water, there's some cold water out in the vestibule. And I'm going to ask you join me in checking your phone to make sure that it's on vibrate. Thank you. Trooper Steve.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Good evening. I told if I don't give out hugs and kisses, I could take this off. As long as I stay up there on this hat, okay? It's a lot easier to hear me, and I'm not much of a mic speaker. So can everybody hear me okay, just with my big mouth? Yeah. Good. This is awesome. This is the largest group of worshipers that I've gone out to talk to. I've been to synagogues, I've been to mosques, I've been to Catholic churches, and the Church of What's Happening Now, whatever it is, I've never had as many people come. So this is awesome. You guys are really into trying to keep your place of worship safe and secure. So hopefully we'll get you some pointers tonight. I should be done around 11 o'clock. So is that too long? I did notice Pastor put the clock right there where I tell me I got till 6:30. That's it. Yes. So just a little bit about myself. Steve Rothwine is my name. I've been a trooper for over 30 years now. I hold a unique position within the state police. I'm the school and community outreach coordinator for Troop G. So what does that mean? Troop G is a geographical area. It encompasses 10 counties, the Capital District up north to Hamilton County and out west to Montgomery County. And I'm kind of the public education guy for the state police. I work a lot with school districts. I was a school resource officer for 7 years, but today I work with them on all of their lockdown drills and all of the state mandates that they have to have done. I go out and teach with the kids, whether it be internet safety or bullying, driver ed I've got coming up next week. I'll be out talking to some driver ed classes. So I do a lot of work with the school districts, but it seems like my job is kind of morphed into the majority of what I do is what we're doing here today. I have businesses call me and say, hey, can you come out and do a security assessment? How do we make our place of business safer? And then I've got community groups. I have churches and places of worship calling all the time saying, hey, can you come out and do a security assessment and come out and talk to our congregation? So when I got the call to come out here, I was very excited. We spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of time going through your entire place. And I made a lot of expensive suggestions. I'm good at that. It's not my money, it's yours, so I can throw it out there. But all things that, and I always like to tell people that, you know, we can ask for the SWAT team to be out in front every day of worship, right? I mean, that's just not feasible. We can't afford it. They can't provide somebody. So some of the suggestions I made are things the safety team are going to take a look at. They're going to figure out the, you know, money, because it all comes down to what can we afford to do now. But at least those talks are in progress. So we're working at keeping things safer here for you. And I applaud the safety and security team, because not every place of worship has that. So again, you guys are just really on top of this stuff. So not to keep you here all night, I'll jump into my presentation. The W questions, I always, wherever I go, right, the cops are here, something's wrong. Why is the state police here talking to us? And the answer to that is we're being proactive. So rather than like having received a threat or something happening here and us coming out afterwards, right, we're trying to get in front of this and say, hey, how do we make things safer before something bad happens? And these questions are very easy to answer. Like, why am I here and why are we having this discussion, right? We all hear the news, we all watch the news. Places of worship are being targeted for whatever reason. Maybe it's a skin color, maybe it's a particular, the Jewish folks or the Muslim folks, right? I mean, there's all these different reasons why. But that is why I'm here too. These threats are out there. These threats are being made to other places of worship. Who would want to do this? I don't know, right? The FBI can't even come up with a particular idea of who this person is, right? So I don't know who that person is. It could be somebody just walking in off the street. It could be someone part of a hate group. Maybe it's a domestic situation. Okay, so we take everything else off the table, but now we've got a husband and wife going through a tumultuous divorce, you know, I'll just say wife comes here for a day of worship, and that's the day husband strangles off the tracks. He comes here to do harm to her, which puts all of you in danger. So those are the reasons why I'm here and the reasons that we're discussing. And that's kind of cool up there, Terrence. Now you put me up there, like I'm not used to looking at myself on the TV screen. My good side right here? All right, so what can be done to keep us safe as possible at our place of worship? Safety committee, right? I didn't put this in here just because you had one. This is here when I bring out to everybody, and you guys have one, so that's awesome. What is the safety committee responsible for? Looking at all the safety-related issues, and it's not just active shooter. It could be, you know, making sure that you have a safe passage to get in here, right? You're making sure that the steps are fine, anything that has to do with safety. So looking at all safety-related issues. Building security, inside, outside, okay? Your personal safety once you get here and you are inside the building, okay? And establishing an emergency action plan. And we'll get into all of these more as we go on. So an emergency action plan really is just, what do we do if? You know, how do we respond if? What if we are here and we receive a tornado warning? Where should we go? Should we leave here? Should we just send everybody out? No, right? We have some sort of a plan that says, no, the safest place to be is going to be, you know, X. It's going to be away from these large windows. We're going to, you know, go someplace that's going to be the safest. What do we do if our day of worship in Albany PD shows up at the door and says, hey, we just had a bank robbery, 2 guys ran out with guns. Do we have a plan to address that problem, right? How do we keep that situation outside of our place of worship? So the emergency plan is just thinking about what emergencies could we be faced with and how are we going to deal with them. I put in here methods for reporting emergencies, 911. Yeah, we all know that, right? But each of the counties are starting to come up with a text 911 system. That would be important to know for you folks here if you have it in Albany County, right? That is if you're involved in a situation and you can't make that 911 call, but you're someplace and you can text that information to the 911 center. It'd be nice if Pastor Vic got up here one day and said, hey, everybody, just letting you know, if you're in the Albany County area and you can't talk, there's a situation, you can text the information. That would just be a part of your emergency plan. When I get out to larger buildings where we maybe need a PA system, we talk about that. How do you use the PA system? If you have a walkie-talkie system, and do you have, you don't know the radios. Classrooms are downstairs, if I recall correctly, right? We talked about radios. Okay, again, one of those expensive suggestions I made. If we have something going on up here, how do we let downstairs know we got a problem, right? So we're talking about communication issues. Who's going to carry the radios on what particular days, and what do we say depending on what the emergency is. So what to say when calling for an emergency response? I'm going to discuss this now. If any of you have kids in school and they run active shooter drills, what do they call that particular drill that they run? I used to get messages from schools that, hey, the school just did this particular drill. It was just a drill. It was not an emergency. They lockdown, right? So I like to bring this up every group I go and talk to, because I think we should get lockdown to be a universal term, right? So if you are at your healthcare provider, and I've been working with a healthcare provider locally who used to use a code orange for their active shooter response. So I said, okay, if I'm sitting out there in the waiting room and I hear code orange, right? I'm gonna go back to playing my Candy Crush and, not thinking about what that is. But that was their response, that was their call for, we have an active shooter, we have somebody inside the building with a weapon. So I said to them, I said, right, if you wanna use code yellow because you have a key, something over here, or somebody bombing it over there, right, that's okay, we can color code those things. But for a true emergency, let's not color code it. Let's call it a lockdown. I don't even care if you yelled out active shooter in the building, right? We all know what that means. But I bring up the lockdown because in Crossgate a few years ago, somebody shot off a round, and there was a lot of hysteria. People were running. And at some point, they got on the PA and they said, lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. And through interviews afterwards, what we learned was that the parents were standing there going like a code orange, like, all right, what's the lockdown mean? And the kids were like, Mom, Dad, we gotta go, right? Because the kids do it every year in school. They know what a lockdown is. So if you're at the mall, right, and you hear that lockdown, 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 or you're at a restaurant, whatever the case may be, and if you don't hear anything or see anything, just know what that term means. That means we got somebody in the building with a weapon, more than likely a gun, trying to do harm to our folks, right? So even if you don't see or hear anything, you know you got to start moving, okay? And that's something I would like to see incorporated here, right? We had a radio that we call downstairs, say, hey, lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. Your teachers, boom, they know to close, lock the doors, they know all the things that they have to do. Okay. So that's my little spiel on lockdown. Evacuation routes, you know how to get out of here, right? Can you get out this way? Yeah. Do you know how to get out that way? I know it says exit, all right, I'm not an investigator, but I figured that out myself. But some of these doors you go through, and then it's like a maze. And again, I forget the exact layout here, but just know how to get out of here. Well, if there's an exit on that side, then that's got to be an exit too, right? No. You guys are good. You guys are good. All right. So yeah, we wouldn't want to run over there if we were able to make an exit out of here. So just know your building and know how to get out. All right. So as I did a walkthrough, we're looking for the physical security of the building, right? Are all your windows locked? Are they lockable? And if they are lockable, are they locked? Is your glass reinforced? So we talked about, or we're going to talk about locking the building down on days of worship, right? But what if somebody wanted to get in? I see a whole lot of glass out there, right? Somebody could literally just shoot the glass out. It would fall out, and then they could just climb in, right? So there's a product out there. It's a bullet-resistant film. It's called. It's like Saran wrap, and it goes over top of the glass. It does not make it bulletproof. So projectiles will go through the glass, but it keeps it from falling out. Much like your windshield, right? You take a rock to the windshield, it kind of splinters. That's what we're talking about. So it would keep the glass from falling out. Would essentially keep the egg guy on the other side. Those are some things that I recommend. It takes time, it takes money. The cameras are great for after action. If someone was coming here with a weapon to do harm to you folks, do you think they care there's a camera? No. And if anything, they probably like that there's a camera because maybe that'll make them famous, right? So cameras are great for after action, meaning minor crimes. Somebody graffitis your building, somebody breaks into a car, somebody steals something from inside here. Those are things that we go back to the cameras and look for, but they are important, again, for keeping people from doing what they shouldn't be doing. Interior doors lockable. So the program I use is the Run, Hide, Fight program. Have you guys heard of that, those terms? Okay. Run, Hide, Fight, Texas University and Homeland Security put together a program to say, hey, how do we respond to these incidents? And they came up with Run, Hide, Fight. It's kind of a catchy phrase. But what happens after every time somebody comes out with something? Right now we've got avoid, deny, defend. So we've got this CRACE, civilian response to an active shooter event, which I think Albany PD uses, and they're all good. We're all basically teaching the same thing, but just letting you know that I use the Run, Hide, Fight program. And part of that hide part is where do we go if we can't get out of the building, we don't feel comfortable leaving an area, can we get behind a locked door? I mean, most of the time you probably spent in here, but what if you're downstairs in the classroom? How do those doors lock? If we're not comfortable getting those kids out into the hallway, how do we lock the door and make our kids safe? So that was part of our walk around, is making all your interior doors be able to lock. If you happen to be out in the front and you can get to pastor's office, does his door lock? Right? Maybe we just take a look. Or maybe the pastor lets us know one day, hey, yeah, my door locks. If you happen to be over there, something bad's going on, you can make a run for it over there. Right? Here's how the door locks. All right? Again, talking with larger groups, sometimes there's a card swipe access. I mean, some of you may have it at work or something, but doesn't really going to work here for you guys. The PA system we talked about, which is basically those two-way radios, probably be the best thing and least expensive thing for you guys to invest in. Okay. So after every active shooter event, everyone's pointing fingers. And I remember when Parkland happened, I had two daughters in high school, and they said, it's the principal's fault, it's the superintendent's fault, it's the police's fault, it's the politician's fault, it's everybody's fault. Yep, you're not wrong with that, right? Everybody needs to do something. I said, but that individual posted on social media for months what he was going to do. How many people spoke up? So I looked at my kids and I said, listen, it's your group, it's your generation, your age bracket, right? Are you guys reporting your concerns to the school if you have some about a student? Did those students in Parkland report anything? Or did they just see what was going on and, you know what, I don't want to get involved, right? So there's responsibilities for you folks, and we're going to kind of discuss those right now. Okay. Be able to recognize the signs of potentially violent behavior in your friends and others and report it. That's just, reporting concerns, okay? And I always say, let's talk about who here is normal. Who can we compare ourselves to as normal? So I said, all right. I said, let me put this down. If you were over my house during the school year and my teenage daughter came downstairs, she's sniveling and drooling and she's mad as heck at everything. She doesn't speak to you, right? And if we were having coffee there and she went storming out to catch the bus, you'd be like, man, there's something wrong with that child. I'd be like, nope, that's normal. That's Abby, right? She's normally that way. When she comes home, she's in a lot better mood, but in the mornings, that's who she is. I said, but if she came down the stairs, you're like, hey, Dad, I love you. Give me a big hug. I was like, drugs or alcohol. So that's what I pose to you guys. You get to know each other. Start to know when someone's not acting their norm. Doesn't mean they're going to be the next active shooter. No. Right? Maybe someone's just going through a hard time. But it's those things that we start to notice. Like, you're a bubbly, happy guy like, all the time I see you, right? Well dressed, you look good. Now he's becoming disheveled. I'm smelling alcohol in his breath all the time. He's making some statements that are concerning me, right? Who do we tell about that here? Who do we report that? Is that pastor? Is that, I don't know. Yeah. I love it. Good, nice, close-knit community. I love it. But yeah, so if we have concerns about someone, who is that person we report it to? Who's going to be the person that puts the puzzle together? You may have seen one little thing about him that you didn't like, you didn't report it to grandma. Maybe you saw something, and they were all little things, right? But if you put all those pieces together, maybe we've got a problem. Maybe this young man's going through some hard times. And that's something we find out after every active shooter event. Right? You go out and interview people, like, that doesn't surprise me. I knew he was gonna. He said he was gonna. And nobody said anything. Right? Same thing here. Just if you see something that's disturbing enough, make sure that you report it. We talked briefly about domestic issues. We're gonna talk about greeters and people at the front doors. If you have an order of protection against your former loved one, they need to know about it, okay? So if they see that person walking up to the front door, we're closing, locking the doors, calling 911, because that person's not supposed to be here. And that's a tough thing to talk about, right? Like, I don't wanna come in and be like, hey, everybody, terrible weekend. My wife beat me up, I'm going through a divorce, things are not, right? And who wants to do that? But I think if I come over here to Pastor Vic and say, Pastor Vic, I'm going through a divorce and I got an order of protection, I think you guys should know because they shouldn't be here, right? He can discreetly let the greeters know, right? I know it's gonna get out to everybody anyway, but, you know, at least we can keep ourselves a little bit safer in that respect, right? Some of these incidences are domestic issues. Recognize the sound of gunshots and react quickly. I can pop off a few now. I won't be back for any more presentations, I guarantee you that. Yes. And I usually say, if you live in Albany, you know what that sounds like. Yeah, it's that loud popping noise. You guys know what the sound is, okay? I've asked people when I go out to places of worship, businesses, like, what here makes you think of gunfire? That you've heard something, ooh, that sounds like gunfire. Other than it probably is gunfire, right? I hear people say, oh, the car's backfiring. I'm like, oh, maybe in the 70s that was a, you know, a thing. Not so much today. So you know that distinctive sound. And what we're saying is that recognize that sound and react as quick as possible. Okay, that's calling 911, that's putting this building into lockdown, getting yourself safe. All right. We've talked about the radio system. We're going to know how to use them. And what do we say to everybody? And we'll talk about how to respond when law enforcement gets here. So people don't typically just snap. If you can leave this one up there, you know, there's always signs before an event happens. And like I said, it doesn't always have to be an active shooter event. It could just be maybe somebody that wants to do harm to themselves. But you know, you see these differences in the person that you know. This is not how they normally are. And I put up a couple of lists. I think this came from a workplace violence program I had. There's one, here's another thing here. Someone suicidal, they talk about putting things in order. Right? Domestic situations, financial problems, I had to file for bankruptcy, I'm getting divorced, my wife's taking me for all I'm worth, right? Maybe it's just somebody that needs a helping hand. But when someone starts talking about weapons, you know, I was at the gun show, I picked up 10,000 rounds, and I had to wipe out a whole large crowd, right? He's looking at me going, oh, but those are things that we hear that people say that they don't report. They've heard that someone said this type of thing. You know, when someone's talking oddly about firearms and bomb making and taking people out, we need to let somebody know. That's a definite must. You guys have greeters here? Yeah. Okay. Are they all early 20s, built, ready to go? So we have, I'm guessing, a whole spectrum of age brackets, right? From probably 80 years old to 20 years old. But greeters have responsibilities. And it's always been in the past the greeters just there and say, hey, I'm just going to pick on you all night. You know that, right? Okay. He's on me right in front. I can't pick on him. So yeah, they used to be just welcome, you know, come on in, everybody, right? And now greeters have a little bit different responsibility. So maybe you're asked one day to step in as a greeter just because, I don't know, maybe somebody's out sick or whatever the case may be. Or you're just wondering what your greeters do. But we want them to be paying attention to what's outside this building, right? We don't want them to wait until everybody comes inside before we start looking at them. We're looking at who's walking up to the building. Why today is somebody walking up to the front door in a trench coat? Right? So there's an alarm, right? And that's weird. What are trench coats good for? Hiding long guns, okay? So we're just looking for suspicious behavior. How many hockey players do you guys have here? How many kids showing up with hockey bags? None, right? Maybe one or two, maybe. So again, suspicious, right? Like why? Right? So maybe the greeter steps outside, hey, I don't recognize you, right? This is a good chance to introduce yourself and welcome them. Welcome to our church, our place of worship, right? And then you start looking at other things. Are they acting fidgety? Are they sweating? It's in the middle of winter time, right? Just odd behavior. It gives us a chance to keep them from coming inside. And maybe they're not a threat. Maybe they're just somebody that just moved to the area. And certainly us welcoming them is a good thing. But we're still trying to figure out good person, a bad person. right? And that's what your greeters are looking for, okay? We said they're gonna welcome them, okay? A special greeting, right? Like I know all you guys, so when I see you, yay, good, hi, come on, yep. And I don't recognize this guy here, it just draws my attention to him more. Why is he here? We're happy, we always want new congregants, right? But let's have a little bit more of a conversation with him. So you're vetting all of those that are entering into the building. Duffel bags we talked about, trench coats we talked about, suspicious behavior we talked about. Those are the things that your greeters, so the greeters just aren't there just to say hi, okay? They're your first line of defense to keep that threat from coming in. Boy, these greeters got a lot of responsibilities. Yeah. So if the greeter senses a threat, how do they close and lock that outside door the fastest? Right? And these are things that we talked about. So if you're not part of the greeters club, these are conversations that we've had. How do we get that door closed? We see somebody walking down the sidewalk with a long gun or a handgun, right? We want to lock this place up. How do we do it the quickest? Know where the safety tools are. One of the other discussions that we had was maybe we don't want weapons in our place of worship. Well, maybe we do. That's a decision that you guys all need to make. But at the very least, in an active shooter event, somebody brings out a weapon, they have their mindset, right? And they want to see and they want to shoot. Well, what happens when the Holy Bible comes flying at their head, right? Whoa, right? It makes them stop, even if it's just for seconds. It makes them stop doing what they're doing. When I go out and talk to businesses, I talk to folks, what do you have on your desk? A stapler and a tape dispenser and a big, huge coffee mug and that ugly glass starfish that you got at the Jersey Shore that you swore you never bought but your kid made you, right? But now you got a 2-pound weapon. So what could we do here at church to make things, you don't want, guns and we don't want nightsticks and things in the back, but geez, what about a couple of candlesticks? How about a couple of Bibles, a couple of big books? If someone were to break out a weapon, your greeters are standing there, they have what I call a safety tool or a special tool to use against somebody. And the other thing we discussed too, if you see a can of wasp spray in the back, okay, that was me. That stuff's under pressure. I could shoot you guys in the back there. It's a chemical. It's toxic, right? It's blinding. If you get attacked by a swarm of bees, you'll be glad you had it. But it's for those other things, right? All of a sudden, something bad's going on. Boom! I can grab this and I can shoot that person in the face with it. Those are the tools that we're talking about. So if you start to see those things start to appear in the back, you'll know what they're there for. And we talked about the exits. We don't have a panic button here. So from here, we're going to talk about this run, hide, fight. Not only can you use that here at your place of worship, but you could use it out for dinner, mall, large gathering, whatever the case may be. So an active shooter, though, is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a populated space. A lot of times, there's no particular victim in mind. I think when I talk to places of worship, they don't like what you worship. They don't like whatever the case may be, right? So I think that they may be selecting you in particular. The no pattern in the selection of victims would be like Vegas, right? Someone just randomly shooting out a window into a crowd. There's a lot of different motives for this. As we all know, anger or hate towards a particular group based on religion, sex, orientation, right? Revenge, whether it be domestic issues, and I think a lot of times just mental illness plays a part in that. One of the stories I tell, usually later, but I'll tell it now, is a Waffle House in Maryland. This was a few years back. That individual just walks in off the street. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but the individual just walks in off the street. No domestic situation, no disgruntled ex-employee, just somebody who picked Waffle House and walked in off the street and started shooting. I'll tell you how that ends here in a little bit. Mentality of an active shooter, the desire to kill and injure without concern for his safety or threat of capture. Most active shooters don't expect to make it out alive, okay? They go into that knowing that they're either going to kill themselves just as law enforcement shows up, or law enforcement's going to shoot them, or, which I was very sad about the situation, very happy to see an individual carrying a concealed carry put an end to an active shooter event last week. Yeah, would not want to see, don't want to hear about it, don't want to see that happen. but, okay, the incident's unfolding, we've got a good Samaritan with a weapon, right? I think that's awesome. But most of the time, they either take their own lives or they wait for law enforcement to take their lives. They accept targets of opportunity while looking for or after finding intended victims. Australia, maybe. It was a synagogue. He came in. He didn't like their religion, so he shot everybody inside and then went outside and just continued shooting. So someone who has seen all his targets and then continues to look for more victims. And as I said, right, they'll continue until stopped by law enforcement, suicide, or other violent intervention. That other violent intervention is you guys, okay? We're going to talk about the fight end of this thing here as we go on. So the old adage, if it's going to happen here to you guys, I don't think so. I don't think we're ever going to have that happen. All these people all said the same thing, right? We're having a holiday party in California. Husband and wife show up. There's 14 killed and 22 injured. I know these dates are a little bit older. I need to update my presentation, but it just repeats itself, right? A grocery store, now locally or recently, we can look at Buffalo, right? This was in 2016, HEB grocery store. Someone came in, 1 killed, 3 injured. An awning company down in Albany, disgruntled employee just walked in and just started firing at his coworkers. I guarantee you they all said, that's not going to happen here, right? So we can't bury our head in the sand. We know about all the school shootings. I don't need to spend an hour going over each of those, but if you go and you talk to those school officials that survived, they're like, we didn't see it coming, we didn't know. Where we shop, congregate, right, little mass gatherings. I know it's a little overkill, but I want you to get the point that we can't just keep burying our head in the sand saying it's not going to happen here. And now we get to places of worship. Nashville, Tennessee, in 17, 1 killed, 6 injured. The other, First Baptist Church in Texas, 27 killed, 20 injured. I believe that one stopped. I believe a neighbor had a weapon. Do you remember that? And I think he went and tried to, end that situation as well. But again, someone, trying to help. Still, 27 killed, 20 injured. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, right? The synagogue, 11 killed, 7 injured. So, and I guarantee all those folks are going to go to what happened at their place. So the new mindset. Let's start thinking about this. Okay, I don't want anyone walking around scared to death. It's going to happen any time now. But let's just make a plan. Let's start thinking about this. It's important that we discuss this stuff. Active shooter events evolve very quickly. They're very fluid, so I can't tell you, you're going to do this every single time, or you're going to do that every single time. All right? You need to make that decision as fast as possible. The faster you make that decision, the better your chance for safety and survival. Which kind of goes back to that section where I said, know the sound of gunfire and react quickly. Right? If I hear what sounds like loud popping back there, like, is that somebody shooting a gun? Probably I'm going to head for the, well, I would take care of it, don't you worry. I mean, if I was, unarmed, I'm not going to spend the time like, but it sounds like gunfire. But no, you know what? I'm getting you guys, let's go. I don't know what that noise is, but it sounds like gunfire to me. We're getting out of here. The faster you make that decision, the better, like I said, for your safety and survival. All right, so the run, hide, fight. Run, if there's an escape path, take it, right? Where's the safest place to be in an active shooter event? Yeah, somewhere other than there, right? Not there. So if we can get out of here, we're going to get out of here. What if we can't? What if bad guys between us and the exit? What if we're at the mall and the only thing I can hide behind is a rack of clothes? Great spot, if bullets are flying, not really, but maybe if you're hidden and out of the view of the shooter, bullets aren't flying in your direction. So we'll talk about the hide. And then this part that doesn't make any sense, fight or defend or take action, we'll spend a couple minutes on that as well. So the run. Remember I told you, know the axis, know how to get out of here, know that we're not going to run over here to an exit, but we're going to run over here. What is on the other side of that door? And I'll get out of here as quick as I can. So have at least one escape route planned in mind. If you're out to dinner, you walk in through the front door, so you know I can go out that way. Where is there usually another exit in a restaurant? The kitchen. Yep. So maybe we just take a look around. Oh, there's the kitchen. Okay. Bad things happen. Boom. I know how to get out of here. I mean, I can go on with stories and stories and stories and stories, but one that you guys might remember was a nightclub. Again, it was in a different state, and the band got up on the stage, and they told them beforehand, no pyrotechnics inside. So what do? They light off pyrotechnics, the whole place lights on fire. You guys remember that? And don't quote me, but I think it was 31 people died in the front vestibule of that nightclub. And I'm guessing they all thought, I came in this way, we all have to go out that way. There were 3 other exits in the building that were not blocked, that they could have gotten out of. So just stressing the importance of knowing, how do I get out of the place that I'm in? This wasn't an active shooter event, it was a fire. But right, this all run, how do I get out of this place? So know your way out. Right, the rest of this is pretty self-explanatory. Leave your stuff behind, evacuate regardless of whether others agree to follow. Like, I think I hear gunshots out there, come on, let's go. And he's like, that ain't gunshots. I'm like, yep, you're on your own, right? Right, you know, you gotta take care of yourself, so, you know, if he's gonna argue, and I listened to some audio tape from Vegas, and there was just that conversation between 2 guys, and he must have had his phone out, that's how we got it. But they were arguing, and one's like, I think that's gunfire. I'm like, nah, that's fireworks. And you can understand confusion, right? Vegas, outdoor venue, concert, yeah, probably could have been fireworks. But those are the, you know, if I'm the guy that's like, no, that is gunfire. I'm not arguing anymore, right? I'm gonna make my way out of here. Help others escape if possible. Do not attempt to move wounded people. Now, why would we put that in there? It just sounds mean, right? I'm thinking someone's shot and wounded, probably the gunman's still close by, right? Am I gonna be a better help to them if I'm laying next to them with the next bullet wound, or if I can get to the exit and tell the cops, wounded people on the other side of the door, you know, or in the hallway, whatever the case may be. Some words of wisdom would be nice. Hey, you're gonna be okay, I'll be right back. But make your way to an exit so that you can help that person. Stopping to render first aid may make you the next one. I know we're all gonna make our own decision on that one, but that's to just throw it out there. I go out and talk to nurses, they're like, nah, we can't do that. I'm like, you know, all right, you do what you gotta do, but that's what we're saying here. Warn individuals not to enter an area where the active shooter may be, unless you don't like them. Just put it out. But yeah, we're certainly not gonna let people come into where there's an issue. We're gonna tell people that, you know, to make a run for it. And again, we'll talk about how to respond when law enforcement shows up. All right, so the hide of run, hide, fight. Again, I mentioned before, active shooter, I see somebody, I'm shooting at them, so if I can at very least get myself out of that view of the shooter, hopefully they're not throwing bullets at me, right? As we are hiding, we are always preparing for fight or flight. So I'll bring up the mall again. We're at the mall, and we get behind that rack of clothes, like we used to do as kids, right? Drove our parents crazy, they could never find us for hours. But we get down, we hide, right? If that guy walks away from us, boom, I know there's an exit right here I can get to, right? But what happens if he comes right towards us? Have we come up with a plan of what we're gonna do when he sees us hiding behind the rack of clothes? Right? That's part of the fight of this, and we'll discuss that. Right? So if you're out of the active shooter's view, certainly if you can get behind something that's a little bit more solid than a curtain, would be better if you can get behind a concrete wall, right? But regardless, get yourself out of the view of the shooter. Try not to trap or restrict your options for escape or fight. Not necessarily does that apply here, but anybody remember duck and cover? Right, that used to be, I don't even know now, I think it was even before my time. And that was great for earthquakes and air raids, okay? Get underneath the desk, everyone's gonna be okay. Not a real good spot to be in an active shooter situation. So that old saying of just dive underneath the desk, everything will be fine, not so well. We talked about interior doors locking. And take this stuff if you're, you know, you work in an office building or wherever you work, start looking around your own place of employment. How do the doors lock? If I can't get to an exit, but I can see there's an office right there, it's got a nice wooden door on the front, can I get behind that door and does it lock? Here, same thing, right? Just know what doors lock. If you're down in the classroom, know how those lock. Or if it doesn't lock. If it doesn't lock, it'd be nice to know too. Maybe you need to barricade it or do something else. For an unlocked door, Virginia Tech, there were 5 classrooms that were either the bad guy gained entry or attempted to gain entry. Only one of the 5, bad guy never gained entry into that classroom. And at that time, there were no locks on the doors of Virginia Tech, so the shooter just randomly walked into every one of the classrooms, and because nobody could lock the doors. But 2 students sat on the floor They put their hands behind their back and they put their feet up against the door. And bad guy shot at the door. Okay, so now they're sitting, they're down low, bullets are going over their head, but they kept the door shut. He was never able to gain access, and there was not one injury or fatality in that particular room. Stressing the importance of keeping bad guy out of our area. So if you get to, if you're in the bathroom, we talk about this all the time in schools, right? They're like, stand on the toilet and pretend like you're not there. Hey, if that works, that's great. I'd rather see a couple kids sitting on the floor, you know, you're not coming in here. We're going to keep bad guy on the other side of that door. Okay. If you can see in the back here, this back door here, the two doors in the rear, they have a self-closing hinge on the top, okay? If you're involved in a situation, you could even do it here. If you took your belt off and you wrapped it around the top part, so when the door opens, those two pieces of metal do this. And when it closes, it pulls it shut. If you wrap a purse strap, if you wrap a belt around that, the door will open about 2 inches and then it stops. So you've just made an unlock the door lock just by wrapping something around the top. Just throwing it out there. What else could we do to a door to keep someone from coming in? Right? Throw desks, chairs, whatever. Right? Put something in front of it. Try to keep that guy on the other side. Really, all we're doing while we're hiding is trying to buy time to the cops get here, right? I think response time. What you're trying to do is buy time until the cops get here, right? We need law enforcement to arrive to put an end to this particular situation, okay? So whatever we have to do to blockade, and is it the best idea, right? No. Is that foolproof? No. But maybe it stops him long enough that he goes somewhere else, and we keep ourselves safe. Okay. So I'll go through this just because this may relate to you, some of you at work, or if you happen to work in a school, I tell them the same thing. Once that door closes and is locked, it does not reopen unless it's law enforcement on the other side. So if you're involved in a situation, you dove into an office, you dove into a room, you closed it, you locked it, no matter what happens, right? The fire alarm goes off. What better way to pull people out of their hiding spot than to pull the fire alarm, man? Make them think there's a fire, right? We all know what to do with the fire alarm. Whoa, head for the exit, right? But in a situation like this, we're going to disregard it. Unless you've got fire in your room, right? We're just going to stay put. Someone knocks on the door and says, hey, I'm law enforcement, open up. And I don't know if any of you saw, there was some video of a school shooting, and I forget what school it was maybe earlier this year, where bad guy's on the other side of the door, and he says, hey, it's the sheriff's department, open up. And we tell teachers and kids, don't respond back to whoever's talking on the side, but they did. They're like, yeah, we don't feel comfortable opening the door for you. Oh, come on. I think he said, come on, dude, or something like that. And they're like, oh, red flag. The cops don't talk like that, right? Well, that wasn't the word, but I forget what it was now. And they all jumped out the first story window and they made a run for it because they felt as though their area was going to be compromised. So other than, that, we're going to stay put. I remember Sandy Hook, there was a teacher that took us, law enforcement over 2 hours to convince her that it was law enforcement on the other side. We'll do it. We'll convince you. They were taking selfies and they were sliding cell phones underneath the door and their badges and everything else to make her feel comfortable. But law enforcement is going to be the only ones to come in and let you out. Okay, fight, defend, or take action. Ma'am, there's a guy with a gun out there. Can you go get Go, please. Right? That makes absolutely zero sense, doesn't it? Like, who would go out of their way, unarmed, to take on somebody with a weapon? Makes no sense. We got run and hide before we get to this part, right? But what if run and hide are not there? What if we're having our congregation and I'm Pastor Vic, and this gentleman stands up with a weapon and says, you know what, I hate all of you, I'm shooting all of you. Do you have any run or hide there? Do you have any run or hide here? What is the only thing that we have? Fight. Fight back, okay? And we talked a little bit about fighting back. What do we have that we can fight back with? Well, you're close. You'll probably just reach over there and choke him out. But if you've never thought about that, your first reaction might be this. Right? And that just makes you the first victim or the next victim. Okay? If you're that close to a situation and it pops off right in front of you, right? We can't do this anymore. We need to think about this is what we're going to do. Okay? If I'm not that close to you, well, I tell you what, I'm gonna impale this, clicker into his forehead, okay? And I talked about a little bit too, about, here, with the Bible, with, what can we do to disrupt this individual, the candlesticks, the wasp spread, pocketbooks. Lady, I've seen some of your pocketbooks, you can kill people. So, yeah, okay, you brought up the heels. So, I was at a business and we were talking about all this, and this one big guy with big boots says, I'll just take this thing off. Like, the smell would probably kill him right off the bat. And I'll throw it over at him. And then one girl goes, you know what? I got these, what do they call them? High heels. Stilettos. She was like, you know what? I can just and throw it right in his eye. I'm like, yo, easy, ninja, right? We're just having a discussion here. Don't need to kill anybody. But yeah, we're thinking outside the box, right? I mean, I got a shoe, I got a heel, I got something, but it's got to be fast. I've not had, in 30 plus years in law enforcement, had anybody shoot at me, right? So I would like to say that I've thought about this enough that if it happened in front of me, if I was unarmed, off duty, that I'm going to respond not like this, but I'm mad, right? And I'm coming at you. He's a big dude. I probably cannot take him, right? But on that day, I put her up against you. You're trying to take her life. She will cheer you one of them, right? That's women, ladies. That's what we're talking about. Fight back. And I know I'm talking to some folks that are like, oh, I'm like 70 years old. My mom's 82. She'll kick your ass. Right? You put her in that position, and we've heard stories, right? We've heard where cars have fallen off the jacks, right? And the brother's pinned underneath, and the other brother goes out and picks that car up, and somebody, does that happen on any other day? Or is that adrenaline dump that we get, that all of a sudden we're a whole lot more powerful than we ever thought that we were? So don't ever underestimate yourself. You're not too small, you're not too fragile, right, to fight for your life. I have a little trouble with this discussion in senior citizen homes, but I'm looking at a relatively young group of people here, okay? And I don't care what age you are. We've got to fight, and we need to stop being victims, and we need to start fighting back. I think about the active shooter down in New York City on the subway. Was that earlier this year or late last year, right? I would have loved to have heard somebody crack them upside the head with these kids, right? You got all these people riding the subway, sure, somebody's got something in their hand, but unfortunately not having these discussions, people's first response is to duck away from it, right? I want to see people get mad, and I want to see people like, you know what, this is not happening. You're not doing this to me or anybody else. And hopefully after today we start to plant that seed that we need to respond, whether it be throwing something, disrupting this individual, and that does two things, right? If I can disrupt you, maybe I got time to get to the exit, or maybe it is time for me to go hands-on. And I was telling you about that case at the Waffle House where somebody just walked in and started shooting around. Well, I listened to the interview afterwards, and there was a gentleman sitting at a table. I'm going to drive him crazy. Back there trying to keep up with me with his joystick. He's just eating his waffles. He's Joe Schmoll, any one of you guys sitting there, wasn't military, wasn't law enforcement, wasn't ninja, right? Just Joe Schmoll eating his waffles. Person walks in off the road, just starts shooting for whatever reason. And in his interview, he says, I was going to make a run for it, but he was between me and the exit. No place for me to go. I'm sitting at a table. There's no place for me to hide. So what he did, he stood up and he charged this individual, knocked him down. With the help of some other patrons, they got the weapon away from him. 4 people died that day. But I think that entire restaurant would have been in danger had he not done what he did. Much like this shooting event last week, concealed carry civilian, here's gunfire and takes the guy out. Beautiful, right? People are fighting back. We're starting to get mad, right? Even if you don't have a weapon, you've got weapons. I mean, we all have one of these things, right? But I noticed that it's going to hurt. Think about using something to defend yourself. Get off my soapbox. So part of this fight, defend or take action, I forgot I should put this in there. Good. Congregation Beth Israel in Texas. If you remember earlier this year, a stranger knocked on the door of the congregation. Doors were locked. They had security measures in place. They looked through the peephole, the rabbi. Sees a stranger, thinks, you know what? It's our duty to help this individual out. So they open up the doors and they bring him in. They try to give him some food, something to drink. They made him some tea. Moments later, the stranger made clear he had a gun and took the rabbi and 3 others hostage. Remember this story? Okay? So you probably remember how it ends. So he could have taken action right away. You know, he didn't. He assessed the situation, realized, all right, maybe now's not the best time for me to do something. Individual threatens the weapon, doesn't shoot it, but threatens it. And as they talked to the rabbi, he said, it didn't look good. Didn't sound good. We were terrified. But he remembered his security trainings and waited for the right time to make a move against the gunman. So he had been to other trainings like this, where somebody probably stood in front of him and said, you have a right to fight for your life. You have a right. And he's thinking, you know what? I'm not going to be a victim today. My friends here are not going to be victims that day. So what did he do? The woman came when the rabbi got the gunman a glass of water to drink. As he was drinking, the gun wasn't in the best position, and as he says, I thought this was our best chance. So what did he do? There was a chair that was right in front of me. I told the guys to go, make a run for it. I picked it up and threw it at him with all the adrenaline. It was absolutely terrifying. I wasn't sure if I was going to be shot. I did not hear a shot fired. As they made it out the door, he was the last one out. So, stranger comes in. They're trying to provide care for him. He's obviously someone, and there's a lot more to this story. I just kind of hit the highlights here. But as the conversation was growing throughout this hostage situation, he was feeling more and more uncomfortable that his life was going to be taken. So he made the decision, I'm going to fight for my life. I'm assuming he hit this guy pretty hard with the chair, right? Because the SWAT team, I think, was outside. They barged right in and ended the situation. But again, just another example of someone fighting for their life, which all of you have that right. Call 911 as soon as safely possible. 2 key things we're looking for, the 911 operators are looking for. Where are you? Right? Do you know the address here? Obviously, you know the name of the church. But get law enforcement here as fast as possible. If you work in an office building, know what floor you're on. Know what side of the building you work on. I'm on the Washington Ave side. I'm on this New Scotland side, right? I tell folks, get to know your north, south, east, west side. And people go, I don't know how to do that. And I go, get there before dawn or stay till after sunset. You'll figure out what side of the building you're on, right? And of course, I always have somebody in the audience that's really good. They're like, hey, I got an app for that, and they pull up the compass and go, okay, go with that. But the sooner that you can get law enforcement to where you are to this situation, the better. So know your building, at least know the physical address. And what is the shooter wearing, right? If you tell me he's wearing a white shirt and blue jeans, I'm looking at you a whole lot different than I'm looking at him, right? So a description is helpful, and where you're at. So law enforcement, when we arrive, our primary goal is to save lives by eliminating the threat, right? We want to make this situation stop, so we need to go find it. We're not going to render first aid to those that are wounded. We're not going to help innocent people evacuate. We need to get to where the gunfire is coming from so we can make it stop. That is our primary goal. So all of these things, right, these are all good, just good law enforcement interaction. Right? How threatened are you by this? Nothing. Your hands or what is in your hands are what's going to hurt us. All right? If you've ever been pulled over on a traffic stop, if you've ever seen a traffic stop, we kind of do some kind of funky sidestep and walk on the way up because we're looking to see where the hands are. Put yourself in my position, right? You just made a traffic stop on someone you have no idea. Could be someone on their way to church. Could be somebody that just robbed a bank. So the first thing we need to do is, for our safety, is to find out where the hands are. If I walk up to a car and I see 2 hands up on the steering wheel, I feel pretty comfortable, right? If I see someone digging underneath their seat or in their center console, how comfortable are you now? Not so much, right? So if you happen to be involved in a situation like this or with any law enforcement, right, hands up, fingers spread out, up high, right? When I go out and talk to kids and adults too, right, what do we always say? Ooh, there's somebody shooting in there. Take that one, baby, right? And then all of a sudden, oh, gotta make a run for it. So now you're heading for the cops with this black thing in your hand, okay? And we've heard stories, and we've all heard lots of stories, someone was accidentally shot because they were mistaken. Like, does this look like a gun? No, right? In a critical situation where I hear shots are being fired and someone's running at me with something big, dark like this in their hand, right? You can see where accidents happen. How much easier is this, right? I'm dropping whatever's in my hand. If you're at work and you pick up the letter opener and the stapler, drop it before you hit the top. Okay? This is the safest thing that you can do. And I just in general, right? Any dealings with law enforcement, put us at ease, hands up, fingers spread out. Oh, I do have a video. I don't know if this is going to play or not, and this is really an office scenario, but I like to play it just if it does play, and I don't know that it will, because it kind of just goes over what the run, hide, fight motto is.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911.
Yes, we're here to Washington.
If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Okay, so we'll just go over this real quick. The situation starts, right, the first 2 people, the security guy and they really didn't have a chance, right? I mean, it's just someone opened fire. Guy with the briefcase, right? Nice heavy briefcase, you would have taken and thrown that, right? Would have certainly made this individual have to flinch. And maybe there was an exit right there he could have gone to, or maybe it was his day to go hands-on. But by turning his back and going, you know what, I'm just gonna run away from this, made him the next victim, right? So he had something that you could use. We're gonna have things here you can use. You have stuff on your person that you can use to defend yourself, okay? I mentioned the one employee diving underneath the desk. We want to get out of the situation, right? So they helped her to make a run for it. There was no PA system. Nobody heard lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. But the way they knew there was a problem was gunshots and people screaming, right? So in so 2 things I saw. The girl that was in the copier room and she moved the copier over. Did you notice there was no lock on that interior door handle? Those are the suggestions that I'm making. Businesses here, right? Get doors that lock. It would have been nice if that door locked. What about the folks in the break room? Well, first off, who would have thrown the redhead in the hallway before we shut the door? You know. Everybody used her as the tool for the obviously, she never sat through my course, otherwise she wouldn't have it. But how nice would have been if they shut the break room door and there was a lock there. Didn't have it, okay? They tried to slide the table in front of it. It didn't work so well. But what did they do? They were hiding, but still preparing for fight or flight. Flight wasn't an option. Apparently there were no other exits in that room, so fight was the only thing they had. And they armed themselves with whatever they had in that room, and if this were a real situation, I would say fire extinguisher to the forehead would have taken them out right there, but certainly it would have been it, so. So I'm just about ready to wrap things up. We're talking about, just knowing your surroundings, being a little more aware of our surroundings, being a little more aware of how we get out of where we are at. If you're at work, know your exit. If you're at a restaurant, take a look around. You're at the movie theater, look for the exit signs. Know how to get out if you need to. And just a little bit more aware of our environment and possible dangers. Our greeters are going to be starting to watch people out on the sidewalk. Why is this individual milling around out there? Looks like he's pacing nervously back and forth, right? Those are things we're going to start picking up on. Maybe nothing. May just be somebody that has a nervous condition. But it's things that we're going to start looking into. We're going to start noticing things more often and being more aware of our surroundings. So the run, hide, fight, right? Safest place to be in an active shooter event, not there. So we're going to run. We're going to make a break for it. We're going to get away from that situation. If not, we're going to hide. We're going to deny access into our hiding spot. Well, we're going to keep preparing for fight or flight. And then this last part, like we talked about, made no sense. Maybe it makes a little bit more sense now, right? I break out a weapon. I hope you guys in the back get to that exit and get out of here. I hope you guys in the front realize you've got one thing to do, and that's defend yourself, right? So you're going to take on that person with a weapon. No need to applaud. I know I threw a ton of stuff out there. It's a lot of stuff to cover. Not only how do we keep ourselves safe here, but how do we keep ourselves safe outside of here as well? I work with community groups. I do work with senior citizens, not only on this particular subject, but also on senior scams.